Hello. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Real news coming at you live. I don't even know what this music is right now. I just typed in copyright-free music on YouTube, and I'm hoping for the best. Fingers crossed. You can see I got the tie, collared shirt going. I literally just got back from the legislature. I'm here right now trying to give a quick update as you can see in the title, how did Tennessee respond to George Floyd? So I'm going to rant and riff for a little bit as some other people are coming into the live stream here. But hey, my name's Grant Henry, if you don't know who I am. I'm one of the guys behind the scenes that runs this little show, program thing, whatever, called Real News. I'm back at it again. I'm hoping to do a couple more updates for you. I'm trying to stay connected with you. I'm getting a little bit more time back. And frankly speaking, I've drank some coffee. And I want to come to a platform where I can be a little bit real. Maybe not have the normal strictures and restrictions and structures of, say, the 9 to 5 up at the legislature, the other stuff I do in my free time. So this is going to be a quick presentation on, yes, you're seeing it right there, how did Tennessee respond to the George Floyd situation? I'm going to keep some of this chill music going in the background now. I don't even know how it sounds, but I like it. Everybody knows what the George Floyd verdict was. We all know how that went down. We all watched it. We all read it. We all saw it. We all have feelings about it. We all say good, bad, otherwise. But I want to let you know directly that some of the other rhetoric that you're hearing out there, some of the other messaging that you're hearing now, that the system itself is so inherently flawed that this was not justice. That the system itself is so inherently flawed that we can only look at this through one scope or one lens, that nothing else can be done other than, say, burning streets down. I don't believe that. I'm hoping to demonstrate why I don't believe that today, right now. If you're watching on Facebook, I'm just looking at the comments. Let me know how the audio sounds. Let me know in particular if my mouth is actually syncing up with the words that I'm saying. There's this audio delay thing that I have to do in Streamlab. It's a whole weird thing. But in Tennessee, we had another bill. Let's take a look at it right here. This bill. House Bill 1406. It doesn't look like much right now, but you'll see clearly passed out of Criminal Justice Subcommittee today, and 32 yes votes, 0 no votes in the Senate as of yesterday. Sorry, on Monday. So what does this bill intend to do? Well, what I'm hoping to demonstrate tonight is that it intends to do something from the very beginning, that Tennessee does policing properly, that there's a better way to enact change other than, say, burning things down in the street. That stuff still does need to change, that we need to stay diligent and vigilant, and we need to look after and change things for the better for the future. But the long, hard, arduous work that's done behind the scene is not for nothing, that there's some great stuff that's gone into this. Let me start with Representative Michael Curcio. Okay, he's the guy that brought this bill. I can almost guarantee you have not heard of this bill. House Bill 1406, Senate Bill 1380, I believe. Chairman of the Senate Judiciary, Mike Bell, carried it on the Senate side. And this is essentially, no one else is saying this. This is my personal opinion, just so y'all know. I'm ranting a little bit here, trying to get hyped up for Zig's thing coming up later on tonight. Quick little plug for that if you want to watch it later on tonight. He's doing a fantastic little, we're talking about Biden's infrastructure plan. Zig, what's up, buddy? Holler at you. But I can almost guarantee you have not heard this response. And I can almost guarantee that if nobody in media coverage is actually giving this information, they're certainly not going to couch it in those terms that this is Tennessee's response to George Floyd. But I will tell you right now that the legislation you're about to look at is modeled after something called 8 Can't Wait. I'm getting ahead of myself here. Let's just have Representative Curcio explain it himself. Here he is.
Give me 1 second.
Audio's a little bit low. I'm sorry.
So, members, this bill as amended comes from some work done over the summer to analyze and improve law enforcement's use of force policies. On July 2nd, 2020, Governor Bill Lee announced a partnership with the Tennessee Association of Police, TACP, the Tennessee Sheriff's Association, the TSA, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, the Tennessee Department of Safety and Homeland Security, the Tennessee Highway Patrol, the Tennessee Department of Commerce and Insurance, and the Tennessee Peace Officers Standard and Training Commission to enhance policies, improve information sharing, and increase officer training.
All right, that was a bunch of nonsense that basically said, okay, a bunch of stuff clearly happened over the summer, and what do we do about it as Tennesseans? We do what we always do. We get a bunch of people together that are experts in the field, we try and figure out a solution and enact that solution properly. We do this because we believe in constitutional principles, because we believe in the inherent dignity of another human being, because we know we shouldn't violate people's constitutional rights, least of which their human dignity. It's essentially the way that he just phrased that there. Back to it.
This partnership resulted in the governor's use of force policy committee, which issued recommendations on September the 10th, 2020 in the form of a sample use of force policy for law enforcement agencies to adopt across the state. This bill, as amended, seeks to codify these best practices to ensure that the men and women of law enforcement continue to excel in their role of keeping Tennesseans safe. And I want to say that in Tennessee, we lead. We have a history of leading. I want us to continue to lead. And as I spoke with members of law enforcement from across the state on this issue, what many of them said was, Representative, we don't engage in a lot of these practices. Our local policies and procedures say that we cannot engage in these practices. And so the request was actually that we have a piece of legislation that codified a statewide standard to show that Tennessee leads.
So you hear what he's saying here, right? He's saying, okay, well, I came to my law enforcement. A bunch of stuff happened over the summer. We needed a way to respond. There was a very clear, obvious problem. I remember going live back then with Shine during this whole shutdown, and we were lamenting about the fact that there was about a 2-week window where everybody was on the same page. Everybody across the United States collectively. One of the only times we've had a consensus on anything in the past couple of years. There was like a 2-week window where we were all talking about the same thing. And I don't know if my focus is in here, so that's going to be weird, but hey, refocus. Maybe it's good. That same thing was, let's get on the same page. What does this criminal justice reform look like? Are we doing policing properly? Let's have these conversations. What is a no-knock warrant? What is a strangulation hold? What is a duty to intervene? Should we codify some of this stuff? Do you remember that time? And I remember lamenting with my buddy Shine while we were going live one morning, saying, like, what just happened? It disappeared. Seemingly out of nowhere, like dust in my hands, it just disappeared. That conversation, that coalescence that we had, all being on the same page to finally do something for the first time ever, having a real conversation, substantive conversation about changing the police practices. What it meant, the constitutional ramifications. And then it disappeared. It turned into this weird racial conversation. It turned into this division conversation. It turned into a back to blue versus everything else conversation. It turned into everything else other than that. Well, meanwhile, behind the scenes, this was going on. The governor was meeting with a bunch of affected individuals and law enforcement. And law enforcement was responding with all the stuff y'all just mentioned. We're not doing that. Moreover, we're actively teaching our people not to do that stuff. It's against our practices. It would be a violation of our practices. So the response, obviously, in Tennessee, which you're not going to hear anywhere else, the response was, well, let's codify it then. Let's put it into law. Let's make it so that if y'all do violate one of these practices, we can do something about it. Let's lead the way, as Tennessee has always led the way in stuff like this. So what do we get out of it? This. And again, now that you have the background of what you're about to read, the background being that it was Tennessee law enforcement that brought some of this idea together. It was Democrats' nationwide campaign entitled 8 Can't Wait that was the primary pusher behind a lot of these ideas. It was the coalescence of those two ideas together that formed this legislation. Law enforcement, Democrat ideas. I kid y'all not. And it ended up in a Republican carrying all this stuff, man. You're not going to hear this story anywhere else. I honestly don't know why, because this is the story that needs to be told right now, especially in the wake of what just happened. You're actively hearing all kinds of conversation right now. Let me go back. You're actively hearing conversation right now about how what happened yesterday was not justice, how we need systemic change. Nobody's going to do that for us. They're not going to do it at the federal level. We need to burn the system down to the ground. AOC saying on camera, do not mistake this for justice. Well, what am I supposed to mistake it for then? But back here in Tennessee, We're trying to get out in front of some of this stuff. Here it is, okay? All that is the background. And here's what we codified, what passed in the Senate without a single no vote, and what passed at a criminal justice subcommittee today without a single no vote. Section 1, a law enforcement officer shall not, that shall is a very important word, shall not use a chokehold with or without the use of a police baton or any other person unless officer is reasonably believes that deadly force is authorized. You've heard all this stuff about chokeholds. This basically says, hey, you shall not use a chokehold. It's now codified into law unless you think your life is threatened. This gives us a little idea as to what a chokehold actually is defined as. This actually says not using chokehold must be taught to candidates at state law enforcement training facilities. I mean, y'all starting to come along with where I'm talking about now? This literally just passed out of committee in Tennessee today. Nobody is talking about it. It was carried by Representative Curcio, a strong R Republican, and chairman of the Senate Judiciary, Senator Bell, a strong R Republican, making and enacting these kinds of changes. I'm trying to give y'all some fuel, some fodder when you have your conversations with your friends over the next couple of days. What does George Floyd mean to you? What are we doing about it? What's happening? This is what Tennessee's doing about it. So you have to teach your law enforcement officers not to use chokeholds unless deadly force is necessary. De-escalation training. By January 1st, 2022, each law enforcement agency shall, there's that word again, shall develop a policy. Just so y'all know, courts interpret this word shall with a sense of duty, an obligation, a mandate behind it. Obviously, not doing that would be a contravention of law. To refuse to follow that then would be some type of violation of law. Do you get what I'm saying? It's not like a may. It's not like a if you will, if you find time to. It's you have to. You are duty bound. By January 1st, 2022, each law enforcement agency shall develop a policy regarding de-escalation. Each agency shall provide training to officers on de-escalation techniques, including, but not limited to, let's go over a few of them. Verbal de-escalation. And the effective delivery of verbal instructions to prevent the need for physical use of force. Application of reasonable and proportional use of force based upon the totality of the circumstances. De-escalation in circumstances of decreased resistance or compliance by a subject. Allowing a suspect time to submit to arrest before force is used. I mean, is this not exactly what you've heard everybody on the other side being called for? And again, one more time in Tennessee, this is Republicans carrying it, working with law enforcement. This is the literal actual coalescence of true bipartisan nature enactment. I'm telling y'all there's a better way to do this than burning stuff down in the streets. You're looking at it. Let's move forward. A law enforcement officer who directly observes, here it is. Here's the one. Here is the one right here, this big paragraph. You want to know the title of the program? How did Tennessee respond to George Floyd? A law enforcement officer who directly observes or has knowledge of excessive force, excessive use of force by another law enforcement officer, yada, yada, yada. There you go. Blah, blah, blah. Shall intervene. An officer who has direct knowledge or observes another officer using clear direct force now has duty bound. You shall intervene when the officer has an opportunity means to prevent harm from occurring. A law enforcement officer who has direct knowledge of excessive force used by blah, 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 shall, as soon as practical, report this excessive use of force. So now we have a scenario in Tennessee, led by Republicans, coupled together with Democrat push over the summer, 8can'twait.org if you want to follow it up on. Law enforcement back says, hey, if you're seeing excessive force being used, you have to intervene. Moreover, you have to report it later on. Law enforcement agency is prohibited from retaliating against any officer who intervenes against excessive use of force. So now it's a thing where this whole protective nature of police unions, yeah, we're looking out for that as well because we heard the people on this. My dog even agrees with this. By January 1st, 2022, each law enforcement agency shall develop a policy that limits the circumstances under which an officer may discharge a firearm at or from a moving vehicle. Basically, this means like, hey, we got to figure out some scenarios and circumstances by which if you're going to shoot into an oncoming car, we have to talk about this first. Okay, we have to figure out. We're going to severely limit those circumstances because we've seen what happens when we don't. I know I'm talking fast here. Trying to leave myself enough prep time for Zig's thing coming up tonight and also deliver some information, y'all. This is important stuff. This is huge. This also goes on to say that, hey, one of the other things that everyone had a big problem with the whole Chauvin trial thing is that there was no reporting system by which you could track some of these officers down. If there's negligent behavior going on, how would you know? How do you follow that? Here you go. Reporting system has to be developed. You have to implement the use of this use of force reporting system must be established. Blah, blah, blah. It gives you actually data, a designation of where it has to go. You can read this for yourself if you want to. It's linked to the show notes. And here's the big one. Here's Breonna Taylor. Here's the name you heard about. Here's the one that Rand Paul tried to carry at the federal level. That they stalked him down after some White House reception saying, say her name, and you're literally talking to the guy that's carrying the bill with her name in it. It's the most asinine thing that I'm getting off topic here, but no-knock warrants. Done. Gone. A magistrate shall not issue a no-knock search warrant which expressly authorizes a peace officer to dispense with the requirement to knock and announce the peace officer's presence prior to execution of the warrant. So quick recap here, just some of the things that we're looking at in this bill. Again, passed the Senate full floor vote without a single no vote. Passed out of Criminal Justice Subcommittee today with only a single minor exception from Leader Lambert, who said, like, hey, that whole no-knock warrant thing, I used to be a prosecutor. There's a few occasions where that could be necessary, but otherwise I love this thing. Law enforcement has total support of this. Democrats actually pushed a massive campaign called 8 Can't Wait over the summer that was this. Republicans are carrying this bill. Tennessee is doing it. We are doing it. It is right here. Nobody's talking about it. One more time. Chokehold. Deals with that. De-escalation training. Does something with that. A duty to intervene. A duty to report if you have to intervene. Reporting that carries over across. Does something with camp firing into vehicles. And lastly there, obviously, the no-knock warrant situation. And I want to end this entire thing on just a bit of a recap with Representative Bruce Griffey, his take on this, and then finalizing, well, I'll let you listen to it. Let's just listen to it together. Here we go.
Thank you for that, Representative Griffey.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, sponsor, for bringing it, and Leader Lambert for the confirmation. I think law enforcement indicated they don't have any problems or concerns with the legislation as it's drafted, and based upon that, I'll be supporting your legislation, so thank you.
Representative Hardaway.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, so quickly. You just heard Representative Griffey just chime in just long enough. And Griffey, if you don't know who this guy is, if you don't know who Representative Griffey is in this building, Representative Griffey is widely known as like the Trump guy. I mean, there's one other guy in that building that's more of a Trump dude than Griffey is, but Griffey is like the Trump guy in the building. Comes on record just long enough to say, hey, by the way, law enforcement is totally behind this bill, so I'm supporting it too. You got support from everybody. And if you don't think you got support from all sides, listen to this right here. Democrat speaking on the bill.
And thank you to the sponsor. This bill is pretty much my Christmas wish list. And that's, yeah, and that sandwich. I think in the climate that we're in, this bill will go a long ways towards reestablishing the trust factor between law enforcement and the citizens of the state of Tennessee. I think without that trust factor, neither law enforcement nor the citizens are as safe as they could be. Law enforcement can't properly do its job without the trust of the citizens.
Look, I just want to make a note on what he's saying here. This is one of the leading Democrats in the state of Tennessee. This guy's been here for a long, long time. Okay, he has the respect of most Democrats in this entire state. He is talking on something that's very real right now, saying like, hey, this is going to go a long way with emphasizing the trust in these institutions. And again, I can't for the life of me think why nobody in the state would carry this story. And maybe I'm a little bit early, obviously, because, you know, it hasn't passed the full House floor vote. I don't know, man. Maybe they think it's going to get stalled up in Criminal Justice Full Committee. I don't know. I don't know. But this entire narrative writes itself. I mean, am I wrong? If you're looking for something to point to over the next couple of days here of asking yourself, man, I wish there was a way where we could get police, Democrats, and Republicans all on the same page about what's going on in this situation with policing. How do we do reform properly? And how do we make it look constitutional, and still respect the dignity and rights of every single citizen in the area. I mean, look right here. Look at it. Look what's happening. Confirm the trust that we have in these institutions. One more time, I'll let him finish.
And vice versa. That communications and intelligence exchange, and sometimes the actual physical protection of one for the other is necessary. So I thank the sponsor. This hits a lot of the spots. It fills in a lot of the blanks that has kept the community in turmoil. If there's anything that we need to understand after seeing the national displays of not intentional all the time.
Yes, you understand what he's going. Here we go.
Mistakes are made in the field. The fewer opportunities there are to make a mistake, I think the safer our law enforcement agencies are going to find their members are. I think the safer we're going to find our citizens are.
So you get what he's saying, right? This is good for cops, good for Democrats, it's good for Republicans. It's the way that proper policing should be done. It's the way that policing is already done in the state of Tennessee, and we're now codifying that, putting on full display for everyone in the state, and hopefully everyone nationwide to take note of. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I'm not sure how much more I can express that right there as we exit the little show here. I just wanted to come on, express my opinion, give you a little bit of a full take here, maybe a full breath, maybe some of the stuff that I can't say anywhere else other than to the Real News family. I'm hopefully going to be coming back on here a little bit more as we're winding down to the end of this legislative session here, just giving you some recaps on some of the bills that moved, some of the bills that didn't move, like my real opinions on kind of what's going on behind the scenes, what I'm seeing, what I'm not seeing. Like, I don't know. It's really interesting. Wife's home. How's it going? But there it is. All right. Watch it back over. Gabi, you going to watch this back over? Yeah, she says yeah. All right. I hope y'all liked it. I love each and every one of y'all. Sincerely, for real. I'm going to end the stream right there. If you got any questions at all about any of the bills that we're working on, what's moving, how's it moving, any of that stuff, I don't know, reach out to me, hit me up. Some of y'all got my number. Text me, call me, send me a Facebook message, whatever. Tune into Zig's thing here in a little bit. We're going on in literally just an hour. I'll put the link here on the Real News Facebook page as well. But look, last thing. I promise last thing. For real. Use some of this information that I'm putting you today. Use the idea that the understanding that, look, there are some people that will purely want to virtue signal only. There are some people like an Alexander Cortez that just simply want to maintain control of what the solution is. That individual, I sincerely do not believe that individual is out for the best interests of her community or for this country. I kind of think she wants to have a complete stranglehold over to what the solution should be. Because when she comes out and says, hey, what happened yesterday wasn't true justice, well, it's like, well, it's the justice system, is it not? I mean, I understand what you're saying, but maybe if you're saying true justice should look something like this, some actual enacted change, show this to your friends. Tell them in Tennessee, if they're a Democrat, if they don't agree with you, that we have Republicans, Democrats all on the same page that